June 13th, 1944. Swanscombe, Kent, 4:18 a.m. The pre-dawn darkness over southern England carries an ominous mechanical growling, a sound no one has ever heard before. In his cottage garden, 58-year-old air raid warden Harold Mitchell freezes as the strange pulsing roar grows louder. It's not a German bomber. This is something else entirely. Through the morning, mist emerges, a stubby-winged silhouette, barely 100 feet overhead, belching orange flame from its tail. The pulse jet engine creates a terrifying staccato beat, put, 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 earning it the nickname that will haunt London's nightmares, the buzz bomb. Mitchell watches in horror as the engine suddenly cuts out. The silence is more terrifying than the noise. He knows what comes next. Everyone in southern England has been briefed about Hitler's new Vergeltungswaffe, vengeance weapon, the V-1 flying bomb. When the engine stops, you have 15 seconds before impact. The pilotless missile, packed with 1,170 pounds of high explosive, glides eerily silent toward the sleeping village. This is the first of thousands that will terrorize Britain. A robot weapon of unprecedented sophistication, capable of flying 150 miles at 400 mph per hour to deliver death from the skies. But what Harold Mitchell doesn't know, what Hitler's engineers don't know, what even most of the Allied High Command doesn't know, is that in a secret laboratory in Maryland, a quiet physicist named Merle Tuve has just completed the most revolutionary weapon of World War II. A device so secret it doesn't even have a real name, just a code, VT fuze. The V-1 explodes with devastating force, destroying 6 houses and killing 4 civilians. It's Hitler's opening gambit in what he believes will be London's final torment. But in the terrible calculus of war, this first buzz bomb has just signed its own species' death warrant. How could the Germans know that American ingenuity was about to turn their wonder weapon into scrap metal falling from the sky? Applied Physics Laboratory, Silver Spring, Maryland. June 1944. Dr. Merle Tuve stares at the morning intelligence reports with growing dread. The photographs from London show devastation beyond imagination. Entire city blocks reduced to rubble by Hitler's new terror weapon. The V-1 flying bombs are everything British intelligence feared. Fast, accurate, and arriving in overwhelming numbers. In his cluttered laboratory, surrounded by miniature vacuum tubes and circuit boards, Tuve carries the weight of a terrible secret. For 4 years, his team has worked around the clock on what appears impossible, creating a seashell-sized radar that can survive being shot from a cannon at 20,000 times the force of gravity, then guide its explosive warhead to within killing distance of a fast-moving target. The physics seem insurmountable. How do you miniaturize a radio transmitter to fit inside an artillery shell? How do you create a battery that activates only when fired, survives the crushing acceleration, then powers a radar system spinning at 500 revolutions per second? How do you make 22 million of these electronic miracles on a production line? Tuve's standing orders, posted on every laboratory wall, reflect the desperation. I don't want any damn fool in this laboratory to save money. I only want him to save time. Time is what they don't have. Every hour of delay means more London neighborhoods reduced to ash. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away, 24-year-old squadron leader Joseph Barry climbs into the cockpit of his Hawker Tempest at Newchurch Airfield. Barry is already a legend, a quiet mining village boy who has become the RAF's most lethal V-1 hunter. His score stands at 58 buzz bombs destroyed, but each victory extracts a terrible price. The chase tactics are brutally simple. Intercept the V-1 at 400 mph, match its speed, then either shoot it down or, when ammunition runs out, use your wingtip to flip the missile off course. Barry has perfected both techniques, but the explosions have repeatedly damaged his aircraft. Twice he's crash-landed after being caught in a V-1's death blast. Our chief difficulty, Barry explains to reporters, was that though we could see the bombs much further away at night, we could not easily judge how far away they were. All we could do at first was to fly alongside the fairly slow bombs and remember what they looked like at lethal range. The mathematics of aerial interception are unforgiving. The V-1 travels at 400 mph, faster than most Allied fighters can manage in level flight. Pilots must dive from altitude to build speed, leaving precious little time to line up shots. Miss the first pass, and the buzz bomb will likely reach London. British anti-aircraft batteries fare even worse. Traditional time-fused shells require gunners to calculate the exact moment of detonation based on the target's speed, altitude, and bearing. Against conventional aircraft flying erratic patterns, this produces 1 kill for every 2,500 rounds fired. Against the V-1's predictable flight path, the statistics improve marginally, but not enough. In London, civilians develop a grim routine around the buzz bomb's signature sound. When the puttering engine cuts out, everyone freezes, counting the seconds until impact. The psychological terror is precisely what Hitler intended: a weapon that announces its arrival, builds dread, then delivers random death. Churchill's war cabinet faces an impossible choice. The V-1 offensive is just beginning. Intelligence suggests the Germans have thousands ready to launch. Conventional defenses are proving inadequate. The invasion of Europe depends on London remaining operational as a command center and supply hub. Unknown to the British leadership, their salvation sits in wooden crates aboard a special Lancaster bomber flight from Cincinnati to London. Inside each crate, proximity-fused anti-aircraft shells, their revolutionary technology still so secret that only a handful of people understand how they work. The race is about to begin, German engineering versus American innovation, with London's survival hanging in the balance. Lieutenant Colonel Harold "Spike" Warren grips his field glasses as the familiar mechanical growling fills the pre-dawn darkness. Another wave of V-1s approaches the defensive line, 8 buzz bombs in formation, their pulse jet engines creating a symphony of terror across the Channel waters. This is the moment 4 years of secret research has been building toward. Along the cliffs of Kent and Sussex, 500 newly positioned anti-aircraft guns swivel toward the incoming targets. But these aren't ordinary artillery pieces. Each gun is loaded with shells containing America's most closely guarded secret, the proximity fuse. Target bearing 270, range 8,000, Warren's radar operator calls out. The numbers flow to gun crews who've been drilling for weeks with the new ammunition, knowing only that it's special and must never fall into enemy hands. Inside each shell's nose cone, a technological miracle awaits activation. As the gunners fire, crushing G-forces shatter tiny glass ampoules, releasing electrolyte fluid that flows across metal plates to create a battery. Simultaneously, miniature vacuum tubes, each no bigger than a child's finger, power up a radio transmitter smaller than a cigarette pack. The shells scream toward their targets at 2,600 feet per second, each one broadcasting radio waves into the darkness. The V-1s, flying their predetermined course at 400 mph, become unwitting participants in their own destruction. Squadron leader Barry, circling at 15,000 feet in his Tempest, watches the unfolding drama with professional interest. He's destroyed dozens of buzz bombs the hard way, chasing them down, matching their speed, risking his life in point-blank gun runs. Tonight, he's a spectator to something unprecedented. The first V-1 crosses into the artillery's engagement zone. Ground-based radar tracks its progress while the proximity-fused shells climb toward intercept. At 3,000 feet altitude, the physics of destruction converge. The shell's radio transmitter detects the V-1's metal skin and calculates the closing distance. As the gap narrows to 70 yards, the optimal kill radius for shell fragments, an electrical signal triggers the detonator. The explosion sends white-hot metal shards in all directions at 4,000 feet per second. The V-1 disintegrates in a brilliant orange fireball, its 170 pounds of high explosive adding to the destruction. Debris rains into the channel waters as the remaining buzz bombs continue their automated flight toward London. But now the defensive guns have found their rhythm. Shell after shell bursts precisely 70 yards from the approaching V-1s, not by luck or skilled gunnery, but by electronic calculation occurring thousands of times per second. The proximity fuses perform their lethal ballet with mechanical precision. Warren watches through his field glasses as the second V-1 explodes, then the third. His radio crackles with reports from gun batteries, stretching along the coast. Target destroyed, target destroyed, target destroyed. In his cockpit above, Barry keys his radio. Control, this is remarkable. The flak is hitting them dead on. I've never seen anything like it. By dawn, the statistics tell a story that will echo through military history. Of the 8 V-1s that approached the English coast that night, 7 were destroyed by anti-aircraft fire. Only 1 reached London, an 88% success rate that represents a revolution in defensive warfare. In Berlin, German intelligence officers study the overnight reports with growing confusion. V-1 losses have skyrocketed from 24% to nearly 80% in just 4 weeks. The robot bombs are being destroyed with supernatural accuracy, as if the British guns can see into the future. Colonel Max Wachtel, commander of the V-1 program, reviews the data with mounting alarm. His wonder weapon is becoming a liability. Precious aircraft and launching crews wasted to deliver bombs that rarely reach their targets. But how is this possible? German scientists have dismissed proximity fuses as theoretically impossible. The electronic components couldn't survive being fired from a gun. They don't know about Merle Tuve's breakthrough, the miniaturized vacuum tubes that can withstand 20,000 G-forces, the clever battery design that activates under centrifugal stress, the mass production techniques that turn laboratory curiosities into battlefield weapons. As August progresses, the V-1 offensive falters. Launch rates drop as German commanders realize they're throwing away irreplaceable resources. The psychological terror weapon has become a predictable target for Allied gunners armed with technology that makes every shell a precision-guided missile. On the night of August 28, 1944, the final large V-1 raid approaches Britain. British radar detects 104 buzz bombs crossing the channel. Ground-based gun crews, now supremely confident in their revolutionary ammunition, track the incoming formation. By sunrise, only 4 V-1s have reached London. The proximity fuse has accomplished in weeks what conventional defenses couldn't achieve in months. Hitler's vengeance weapon lies broken in the Channel waters, victim of American ingenuity and scientific determination. The terror bombing of London is over, not through courage or luck, but through the quiet genius of physicists who turned the impossible into inevitable. Sheemde Cemetery, Holland, October 2, 1944. The war grave's headstone reads simply, Squadron Leader Joseph Barry, DFC, and 2 bars, age 24. Barry never lived to see the complete victory over the V-1 threat he had fought so desperately to defeat. Shot down during a low-level mission over Holland, his final radio transmission epitomized the RAF spirit. Carry on, chaps, I've had it. By the time of Barry's death, the battle was already won. The proximity fuse had transformed what Hitler called his wonder weapon into scrap metal. Of the 10,000 V-1s launched against Britain, fewer than 2,119 reached London, a success rate that saved tens of thousands of civilian lives and preserved Britain's capacity to support the final push into Germany. The technology's impact extended far beyond anti-aircraft defense. General George Patton, witnessing proximity-fused artillery in the Battle of the Bulge, wrote with characteristic bluntness, "The funny fuse won the Battle of the Bulge for us. I think that when all armies get this shell, we will have to devise some new method of warfare." German prisoners of war, interrogated after experiencing proximity-fused barrages, described the psychological impact with haunting clarity. One Wehrmacht officer reported, "The shells exploded overhead with no warning. There was simply no defense. We emerged from our foxholes in a dazed state, not understanding how the Americans could predict exactly where we were." The secret Dr. Merle Tuve and his team had guarded so carefully represented more than technological innovation. It embodied a fundamental shift in the nature of warfare. For the first time in history, defensive weapons could achieve the precision previously reserved for offensive systems. The hunter had become the hunted. The proximity fuse's $1 billion development cost, equivalent to $15 billion today, proved one of history's greatest technological bargains. Each shell cost roughly $18 to manufacture, but could destroy aircraft worth thousands. The mathematics of destruction had been permanently altered in favor of defense. More importantly, the project demonstrated American industrial capacity operating at peak efficiency. From Merle Tuve's laboratory breakthrough to mass production required coordinating over 100 factories, 26 contractors, and 10,000 workers, all maintaining absolute secrecy while producing 22 million precision electronic devices. The Germans never solved the proximity fuse puzzle. Despite capturing unexploded shells, their scientists couldn't believe the miniaturized electronics were possible. They dismissed recovered components as Allied deception, unable to accept that American engineering had achieved what they considered theoretically impossible. This technological blindness extended beyond individual weapons to encompass a broader failure of imagination. While German scientists pursued exotic wonder weapons, jet aircraft, ballistic missiles, even atomic research, American pragmatists focused on making existing weapons devastatingly effective. The proximity fuse principle continues shaping modern warfare. Today's Patriot missiles, Phoenix air-to-air missiles, and countless other systems trace their lineage to Tuve's wartime breakthrough. The Gulf War's success against Iraqi Scud missiles relied on proximity-fused interceptors, technological descendants of the shells that saved London. Perhaps most significantly, the V-1 campaign represents history's first encounter with drone warfare. Hitler's robot bombs presaged modern unmanned aerial vehicles, cruise missiles, and autonomous weapons systems. The Allied response, precision-guided defensive systems achieving 80% kill rates, established templates for countering drone swarms that remain relevant today. The human cost of innovation deserves remembrance alongside technological triumph. Joseph Barry and countless other airmen died perfecting intercept techniques that the proximity fuse would soon make obsolete. Their sacrifice bought time for scientists and engineers to transform laboratory theories into battlefield reality. Dr. Tuve, reflecting on his team's achievement, emphasized the collaborative nature of their success. Our moral responsibility goes all the way to the final battle use of this unit. That responsibility was fulfilled beyond any reasonable expectation, a secret weapon that helped win the war while preserving the lives of those it defended. Today, as autonomous weapons proliferate and drone technology advances, the lessons of 1944 remain startlingly relevant. The proximity fuse proved that defensive innovation could neutralize offensive advantages, that scientific collaboration could overcome seemingly impossible challenges, and that technological superiority ultimately belongs to those who can manufacture precision at scale. The buzz bombs that once terrorized London now rest in museums, curiosities of a war won by quiet scientists working in classified laboratories. Their defeat, stands as testimony to human ingenuity applied with desperate urgency, and to the enduring truth that in the race between sword and shield, victory belongs to those who innovate fastest. The Germans never knew what hit them, and that, perhaps, was the most terrifying aspect of America's secret weapon. It killed silently, precisely, and without warning, turning Hitler's reign of terror into his own technological nightmare.